The hounds were close enough that Seren could hear them breathing. She vaulted over a fallen log, hit the ground hard, and kept moving. Her bare feet knew the ashwood floor by now, knew where the roots bit up and where the mud swallowed ankles whole. She had been running for 3 days. She was out of clever ideas and almost out of time. Her wrist burned. The silver marks crawling up her forearm pulsed with every heartbeat, a living map of every memory she had ever stolen. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. She could feel them pressing against the inside of her skin like trapped voices screaming to get out. Asterisk, don't think about that. Run, asterisk. A light flickered through the trees ahead. She almost sobbed with relief. She pushed toward it, branches whipping her face, the hounds crashing through the undergrowth behind her. Closer now. Much closer. She hit the door with her shoulder. It opened before she could knock. A man stood in the frame with a blade already at her throat. He was tall, sharp-faced, with copper eyes that caught the firelight like a predator's. He looked at her face for exactly 1 second, then dropped his gaze to her wrist. His jaw tightened. Not with fear. With recognition. You brought them here, he said quietly. Seren pressed her wrapped hand against the doorframe to keep herself upright. I'm already dying, she whispered. Does it matter? A long pause. The hound screamed in the dark behind her. He stepped aside. She stumbled in. His name was Selim, and he moved through the cottage with the economy of someone who had spent years being careful, bolting the door, checking the window, banking the fire low without being asked. He didn't speak. Neither did she. A small wolf pup with 1 gold eye and 1 gray eye watched her from beneath the cot with ancient, unsettling calm. Selim crouched in front of her and began cleaning the gash along her shin. His hands were steady. His face gave nothing away. You know what I am, Seren said. Memory thief. He didn't look up. The marks are a giveaway. Every memory you've taken is written there. You're a walking archive. She pulled her sleeve down. And you're not running. I'm immune. He said it the way someone states the color of the sky. But something moved behind those copper eyes, something old and furious and carefully buried. It's a rare condition. You can't take from me even if you tried. Seren stared at him. In her entire life, she had never met anyone she couldn't accidentally steal from. She didn't know whether to feel relief or grief at the fact that it took this long. Who are you? She asked. The silence stretched long enough to become its own answer. I was king of Varek, Selim said finally. Until Vora decided a kingdom was easier to control without one. The name hit Seren like a fist to the sternum. She went very still. She erased you, Seren said slowly. From everyone's memory. Every single person. His voice didn't break. It simply emptied, the way a room empties when the last person leaves. My brother Aldrich sits on my throne. He doesn't even know he's a puppet. He thinks he was always king. A pause. Does that sound familiar to you? It did. Vora had been doing it for decades, carving out inconvenient truths from the minds of anyone who stood in her way, replacing them with comfortable silence. She called it mercy. She had been teaching Seren to do the same since Seren was 7 years old. Seren had stopped believing it was mercy around the time she turned 17. She's my aunt, Seren said quietly. Selim went still. He looked up at her for the first time, really looked, the kind of looking that takes inventory. You're her blood. And her mistake, Seren said. I refused to keep using my ability the way she wanted. She decided that made me a liability. She looked at her wrapped hands. She's been hunting me for 4 months. Something shifted in Selim's expression. Not softness exactly, more like the moment a locked door decides to open a crack. She'll come herself, he said. The hounds and soldiers are just the opening move. Vora always comes herself eventually. I know. Seren met his gaze. That's why I need to stop running and start fighting. She swallowed. Will you help me? Another long pause. The fire crackled. The wolf pup padded out from under the cot and pressed his warm weight against Seren's ankle without warning. She froze, then very slowly, very deliberately, did not pull away. What's his name? She asked. Finn. Selim watched the pup with something unguarded in his face for just a moment. I found him in the Ashwood 6 months ago. No pack. Smarter than he should be. Eyes like that, he glanced at her, usually means something was taken from him. Seren looked down at Finn. Finn looked back up at her with that too-old gaze. A shifter, she thought. Someone stole his memory of being human. Teach me to fight, she said to Selim. I already plan to, he replied, standing. You sleep. We start at dawn. She almost asked why he was helping her. Then she looked at his face, at the controlled fury and the carefully maintained stillness of a man who had been waiting years for something worth fighting for, and she understood. She wasn't the only one Vora had ruined. They were already running out of time when the knock came the following evening. 3 measured strikes that sounded less like a request and more like an announcement. Selim reached for his blade. Seren put her hand on his arm. Don't, she said quietly. I know that knock. The door opened. Vora stepped inside. She was not what people expected from a monster. Vora was elegant and silver-haired, with soft gray eyes and a throat crossed by overlapping pale scars, decades of stolen memories mapped onto her skin. She looked at Seren the way a mother looks at a child who has stayed out past curfew. Fond. Disappointed. Absolutely certain of her own authority. My darling girl. Her voice was warm as hearthfire. You've led me on quite a chase. Say what you came to say, Seren said. Vora tilted her head. You're full, Seren. The marks go past your elbow now. I can see it even through the wrapping. You've taken too many memories and your body is beginning to fracture under the weight. She spread her hands gently. Come home. Let me take the burden from you. All you have to do is say yes. And become your vessel, Seren said. A jar you fill and empty at your convenience. A partner, Vora corrected smoothly. Someone who understands the gift the way I do. You call it a gift. Selim's voice was quiet and absolutely cold. You erased an entire kingdom's memory of their king. You turned a man's brother into a puppet. You've been hollowing people out for 30 years and calling it mercy. He stepped forward. Get out of this house. Vora looked at him for a long moment. Something flickered in her gray eyes, not fear, but a kind of contemptuous acknowledgement. The Ghost King, she said softly. Still angry after all this time. She almost smiled. Varek doesn't remember you exist, Selim. You have nothing left to threaten me with. He has me, Seren said. Vora turned back to her. For just a fraction of a second, something real moved across her face. Then it was gone. Sunrise, Vora said simply. Come willingly, or I'll take you the other way. She turned and walked out, pulling the door shut behind her like a period at the end of a sentence. The silence that followed was enormous. The temple ruins, Selim said immediately, turning to her. North of here, half a day's walk. The stones carry sound in every direction at once. They were built that way deliberately. Old magic. He looked at her wrist. If your power works both ways. I don't know if it does, Seren said. You've spent your whole life taking memories in, he said. What happens if you run it backwards? Push instead of pull. She stared at him. Her heart was hammering. I could break myself trying. You could. He held her gaze steadily. Or you could give an entire kingdom back, everything that was stolen from them. A pause. Seren. I have watched you train for 2 days and survive things that would have killed someone twice your size. I am telling you that you can do this. No one had ever said that to her before. Not once in her life. She breathed in. Breathed out. We leave now, she said. before she expects it. They walked through the ashwood in near silence, Finn padding between them. At some point in the dark, without either of them acknowledging it, their hands brushed together, and neither of them pulled away. "Do you want it back?" Seren asked quietly. "The throne." Selim was quiet for a long moment. "I used to think the throne was who I was," he said. "Vora took it, and I spent years feeling like I'd been hollowed out." He glanced at her. "Sound familiar?" She huffed a short, painful laugh. "I've been carrying everyone else's memories for so long I can barely remember my own." "Then maybe that's what we're really fighting for," he said. "Not kingdoms. Just ourselves." Seren didn't answer, but she didn't let go of his hand either. Vora was already at the ruins when they arrived. 6 soldiers flanked her in the dark. She looked completely unsurprised. The fight was fast and brutal. Selim cut through the soldiers with terrifying efficiency. Finn launched himself at the nearest guard with a ferocity that seemed impossible for his size, snarling and snapping with those mismatched eyes blazing. Seren fought with everything Selim had taught her: elbows, momentum, desperation. Then Vora's hand closed around her wrist. The pull began instantly. Memories streamed out of Seren's marks like blood from an open wound, years of stolen grief and joy and fury and love pouring out of her in a torrent she couldn't stop. She felt herself going hollow, felt her knees buckling. "Run it backwards," Selim's voice said in her memory. Seren closed her eyes. She stopped fighting the pull. She pushed. The release cracked through her like lightning splitting a tree. Every memory she had ever carried, thousands of them, a whole kingdom's worth of stolen history, flooded outward through the humming temple stones all at once. The ruins sang with it. The sound had no edges. It went everywhere, in every direction, unstoppable. In the capital, Aldrich grabbed the arms of his throne as something vast and undeniable came rushing back into him. Around him, courtiers staggered. A woman in the market square sat down on the cobblestones and wept because she suddenly remembered her mother's face. In the ruins, Vora screamed. Every scar on her throat blazed silver and went dark. 30 years of hoarded memories crashed back through her simultaneously and drove her to her knees. She looked up at Seren, and for the first time, she looked genuinely lost. "You'll destroy yourself," Vora gasped. "I know," Seren said quietly. The marks on her wrist went dark. One by one, like embers cooling after a long fire, until her skin was bare and unmarked and entirely her own for the first time in her life. She fell. Selim caught her before she hit the ground. His arms came around her, and he held on with the kind of grip that had no intention of letting go. "I've got you," he said. Just that. Nothing more. Finn pressed his warm weight against her side and sighed. They sat on the ruin's edge and watched the sun come up over Varek. Not because everything was safe, it wasn't. Not because the future was certain, it wasn't that either. But because the kingdom was remembering itself, and they were still here, and sometimes that is enough. "What do we do now?" Seren asked. Selim looked out at the brightening horizon. "We walk toward the capital," he said. "And we figure it out together." Seren looked down at her bare wrist. Then she reached out and rested her unmarked hand gently on Finn's back. No fear. No walls. Just warmth. Finn looked up at her with those ancient mismatched eyes, and for just a moment she saw something human flickering in them. A question. A hope. "We'll figure you out too," she murmured. "I promise." The sun kept rising. Varek remembered. And Seren, for the first time in her life, remembered herself. Asterisk if this story moved you. Please like, subscribe, and drop a comment below telling us your favorite moment. We create stories like this every week, and your support is what keeps them coming. See you in the next one. Asterisk.